because being Jewish didn't make you Christian. There was a difference between the two. And Paul was deeply Jewish. He explains that even as he addresses the mob. And I love how he's leaving Ephesus and he's about to go to Jerusalem. And you feel like there's this Paul is urged to go to Jerusalem. There's a sense of urgency to go to Jerusalem, to go there for the celebration. And everyone's warning him not to go. Sounds like somebody we know before. Everyone's warning him not to go. And so he's being urged to go. He's ready to go. He wants to go. He's like, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. And everyone's saying, don't go. Don't go. And Paul even closes with a message to the church in Ephesus. And they all express their deep pain, their sorrow, in that they knew, and Paul also knew, that this was the last time he was going to see them. Paul was not expecting to go to Jerusalem and to come out. He was not expecting to go to Jerusalem and to come back to Ephesus. And while he spent a lot of time there, he loved these people very much. He was looking at all of them and saying to them, this is going to be the last that I see you, and this will be the last you see me. Paul was not surprised by what was going to happen next. Paul was going in knowing he's probably not going to make it out. But Paul says, if it is the will of the Lord, let it be done. Like this is the boldness that I think some of us have lost in the gospel. Like we say things like, I would die on a hill for this. Would you die for this? I mean, Paul is Jewish. He still practices the customs, but would you die for this? Would you die for the Judaizing? Would you die from protecting the Christian faith from being Judaized? Would you die for the sake of the purity of the gospel? Would you die on that hill? And Paul's saying, I would die on that hill. Paul was defending the purity of the gospel. And we already know, we read through it. Paul gets to Jerusalem. And there he is confronting a mob. And here's the powerful thing, and this is all I want to share today because I want you all to remember this today. This is the one thing I want you to remember. You don't have to remember any other stuff I was ranting about, but I want you to pay very, very close attention to what happens next. Paul gets arrested. And in chapter 22, right before the chapter, Paul asks, first of all, he asks for permission to speak. And so he's in a barrack, he's arrested, he's probably going to be killed. And Paul's like, let me say some final words. Permit me to speak. And the guy says, Then in chapter 39, Paul says to him, I am a Jew from Tarsus. I'm not even the Egyptian that you're talking about. Because again, there were all kinds of accusations being levied on Paul. And all these accusations, really, a lot of which weren't even true, were being levied on him because at the end of the day, they didn't care for the truth. They just wanted to get rid of him. They didn't care for what was true. They cared to protect their thing. They came to protect their way of life. They came to protect their way of doing things. Even now, today, most people who are debating, and this is really important. I'm going to say this because I need you to observe what's happening even in this time of derision. I want you to observe what's really going down. When you see people argue, most people, when they argue, they're not arguing for the truth. They're not arguing to extrapolate what is true. They're arguing to protect their way of doing things. I find that most people do not actually care about what's true. They actually don't care about what's right and what's wrong. What they care about is winning. Forget about getting to a place of understanding. I just want to win. And many people who are winning arguments are not winning arguments for the sake of revealing more truth. They're winning arguments so that they can preserve their way of life. If I'm comfortable with the way that I live and do what I do, I'm going to throw all kinds of things out there. We're going to debate, we're going to argue, and I'm even going to throw half-truths in that are just as deceptive as complete lies. But I'm going to throw those half-truths in because at the end of the day, I want to protect and preserve my way of living and my way of doing things. Most people argue not for understanding. Most people are arguing for a power trip. This is happening in the church and outside the church. And the church, when most people are arguing, they're arguing for a policy. They're arguing for a cultural position. They're arguing to preserve a political position. It's not really about Christ. It's not really about the truth. It's not really coming to a place of understanding. Rather, it's a means by which we're seeking simply to protect and preserve what is already, or what we already find comfortable. These people didn't care about the truth. They didn't care about the truth of who Paul was. Make him Egyptian. If that's going to get him, if that's going to lock him up, and if that's going to execute him, then make him Egyptian. Make him whatever you got to make him. Place accusations on him so that we can continue on with doing whatever we've been doing, because at the end of the day, we don't want our way of life to change. We don't want something in our heart to change. No. So we're going to argue. That's what we're going to do, because we don't want anything to change. That's why most folks argue. Most folks are arguing because they actually don't want anything in their life to change. They like the way things are right now. They're good all by themselves. Pride. Pride is why people argue, not the pursuit of understanding or the pursuit of truth.